Hey everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Musings. My name is Dave Nixon, and I have my coach, Mr. Jay Hedley, online from the coaching room. Jay, thank you very much for giving me your time today and jumping online.
Yeah, you're welcome, buddy.
Now, last time I was speaking to you and asked you about jumping online for a podcast, and we sort of thought about a couple of ideas, and one of the things that came across was like performance mindset. There was another conversation in there, I think, around something to do with anxiety and maybe moving through that. And I think that's probably a good conversation in itself. So I think I might ask politely if you could free some time up in the next 2 months to jump online and talk about that as well. But today, let's focus on the performance mindset.
Yep. What do you want to talk about?
Well, what is probably the biggest difference that you see in people that you're already smiling, I like it already, that you see the people that are able to continually be resilient and move towards more of a performance mindset compared to somebody who may get stuck in their head more?
Yeah, I was laughing because one of I suppose the difference that makes a difference is to be able to reframe anxiety.
Right, there you go.
Yeah. Look, there are lots of different aspects to that. What was the first part again?
What is the consistent attributes that allows a person to be in a state of a performance mindset?
Yeah. There's something before that, but so being able to free yourself, resilience, I'll come back to that. Being able to free yourself of all of the shit that you run in mind, so that you can simply be present here and in the moment is the key. Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi calls it flow. To be in flow is really emancipation from mind, and so athletes, CEOs, anybody in the field of high performance is and experiences high performance pressure, and pressure is an inside, not an outside job. So there isn't any pressure out there apart from gravity, which is pushing you towards the ground, causing you to age and creases to form, etc. That's about the only pressure that exists out there. And then there's if you go down, there's a pressure in reality, but then if you go down underwater, there's a pressure there as well. But there is no mental pressure out here in reality. Pressure is an inside job. And so seeing how a person in the field that they're choosing to perform at a high level in pressures themselves, and freeing themselves from that is the key. We call it emancipation, is the key to high performance. So high performers don't have any inside pressure. There just isn't. There's a freedom to perform what they have trained their self to be able to perform. So what that presupposes experience. So you can't go from zero to hero overnight. Talent is, in our world, talent is overrated, and practice is underrated. Mm-hmm. And so what I mean by that is that talent really doesn't account for much. It's the practice that enables, because you could be a child prodigy on piano, but the amount of hours that child has to put in to perform at a high level is what no other children are doing. And so even you might have an aptitude for something, you still need to practice like a crazy person to become really good at it. Freedom and emancipation from mind enables a person to express their practice in the present moment. And then the practice does itself. And that's where high performance comes from. It's actually getting yourself out the way, and that includes in practicing. So the hardest thing to do is practice your practices. Yeah, right. Most people really struggle with that because the mind gets in the way. It's cold out there, it's difficult, I'm sore, I'm tired, I excuse myself from doing the work I need to do to become good. To become a high performer. yet all high performers practice their practices. Yep.
You go.
So you know that I work with Waratahs Rugby, much to your disgust, being a Brumbies fan.
Oh, mate, I've definitely stepped back. I'm happy to be an observer of the whole sport at the moment.
So I work with the coaches there. I work with the CEO and his executive team, and I work with some of the players there in freeing them to become a high performer, for the team to become a high performing team.
Mm-hmm.
Someone was talking to me about Israel Folau, and at the moment he is in the best form of his life. You could even look at that and go, even with all the stuff that's going on around his comments, etc., he's still performing at the highest level I've ever seen him perform at, and I've been a follower of him for years. And someone was telling me the other day, and this is somebody who completely is unknown to even rugby. A friend of mine said, I saw Israel come into my park while I was playing with my kid the other day. He pulls up in his vehicle, I don't know what it was, and something expensive, and he gets out the car, and he puts the cones out, and then he just starts practicing, and he was like a madman for an hour. He just went and went and went and went and pushed himself and pushed himself and pushed himself. He had a timer beeping himself. He would move from one thing to the next, and he would just, the moment the timer went beep 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 beep, he stopped, packed all his stuff up, got back in the car and drove off. And he said, it's just so good to see a high-performing sports person just come and do their practices. And that's the difference that makes a difference in high performance. You've got to do your practices, but it's getting your mind completely out the way so that you can simply do them. So if you take that example, he was just doing them. He was just going through. There was no mind in it. There was no, oh, this is difficult. Oh, this is what I do. This is how I get to high performance.
Is there a certain level of disassociation happening with that?
What do you mean by disassociation?
So would you say that Israel is disassociating his emotions or feelings from the objective and just getting the objective done, or it's just a part of the process?
I got no idea. He may be using emotion. He may be, I don't know. So a person could be really pissed off and they could channel that pissed offness into energy.
Gotcha.
I know players do that quite a lot in games when they got something personal going on in their life. They turn all that energy into, of frustration or anger or pissed offedness. They turn it into legal aggression. And they come out and they, often can play the game of their life. So, that's dependent, and I think it's context dependent. Mm-hmm. And so what I am not saying is take the emotion out of it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
If emotion serves you, use it. If it doesn't serve you, then let it go. Yeah, and so I don't think it's dissociation or association. I think it's context dependent. Whatever serves you to enable you to practice your practices.
Gotcha. So before you mentioned about reframing anxiety, can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Let's talk to resilience first.
Okay.
So I don't buy the term resilience. Yeah, I think resilience is a load of crap. Yeah? Right. And there's plenty of people out there who are going to go, this guy is, up himself. He's got no idea what he's talking about. Happy for them to do that. But let me show you that resilience requires to hold a mindset that you've been taken aback. You've been taken backwards because resilience is to bounce back from adversity. Mm-hmm. So you gotta see what has happened in a static way as this occurrence is adversity itself that I have to bounce back from. But how do you know in the process of movement through your life that wasn't the one thing that gave you the learning that enabled you to grow and develop, enabled you to see yourself in a new light, that actually was a springboard for your movement forward, yet you're holding it as adverse and now you have to bounce back from it. So I don't buy the whole resilience thing. The way that I look at it and the way that I train athletes, CEOs, entrepreneurs, celebrities, etc., is to stop seeing reality as good versus bad, adverse versus successful, failure versus achievement. Stop seeing it through that black-white lens of splitting reality. There is no good or bad. It's context dependent. So in that context, it didn't work particularly well. But as you look at life being a process of contexts, a number of different contexts that follow on from each other, how do I know that I call adversity now isn't my greatest learning and therefore my teacher?
Yep.
I don't. So there's nothing to bounce back from. And so if you can shift that mindset from a static mindset to a process-based mindset, you can see that you've got no idea where this will lead you to. Go with it. Stop resisting it. Now there's nothing to bounce back from because you're not framing it as adverse. Now you don't need to be resilient. You've just freed yourself from the up and down yo-yo effect that resilience brings. And that is what is truly what makes great high performers, very, very high performers, and the very, very, very best, is they just don't see things as adverse. They see them as they are, without judgment. Okay? They go to themselves, okay, now what?
Yep. So relating it, so I'm reading Metastates in the Member by Michael Hall. And so he came into Metastates when he was trying to frame resilience and teach resilience. And so it's interesting, obviously, reading all that and then hearing the conversation. Like, I get it, right? So this is adversity, whereas I think there's an old story about the farmer who horse ran away, and the neighbor comes over and goes, "How unlucky is that? Your horse ran away." He's like, "What am I to know about luck?" And then the horse comes back the next day with 16 other horses. And he's like, "How lucky is that? Your horse comes back and it can brings all these other, you're very wealthy now." And he's like, "Well, what am I to know about luck?" Then the next day his son's leg gets broken. Yeah. And so he can't help on the farm. And it's like, how unlucky is that? It's like, what am I to know about luck? And then the next day a group of bandits come through town and they get all the able-bodied teenagers to join the posse. I'm not sure what the word is. The mafia. Yep. And his son can't go. It's like, so what's luck? What's unluck? It's a matter of going, it just is, and putting it as that there then, and then being able to move forward with it.
So luck is an early stage development viewpoint, and its viewpoint is that the context is all of reality through time.
Right.
And that's the component of it. So later stage developed people can see that luck only exists in context. Once you take context out, there isn't any. Because you don't know what's coming around the corner next. You don't know what that supposed luck leads to. You don't know what that supposed bad luck leads to, because you're not a fortune teller.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
So athletes excel when they free themselves of that static viewpoint structure, and they are wholly in flow, doing the practice, playing the sport, without all the mind getting in the way and holding them back and bringing judgment to what is occurring, just simply being with what is occurring and allowing the practice to run through them. At that point, they are so present that they are starting to pull what seems like magic from the moment.
Yep.
It's like they're pulling magic from the fabric of the moment itself, and that's what we call presencing.
Fantastic. So if we're looking at resilience then, and obviously understanding that resilience, like you said, isn't actually occurring, isn't actually a thing, and you went from reframing anxiety to talk about resilience first. Can you then explain, because when I was at the NLP meta coach, I believe level 1, if I said that correctly, when I was there, I remember you saying that people don't have anxiety, they do anxiety. And that was a very big reframe for me, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that would struggle to grasp that concept for many different reasons. Are you able to unravel that a little bit more for me?
Where do you want me to start? Because it's a big subject.
Okay, so let's go the whole idea of reframing anxiety. So something that I've known for a long time, it's like the same feeling that someone might call anxiousness is actually excitement if they want to reframe it. So from a base level, it's like somebody before a public presentation, they might have a very similar feeling. One person calls it excitement, the other person calls it anxiousness, and that may heavily affect actually how they do perform on the platform, whether that's speaking or sport. So
Yep.
Is that what you're referring to when you say reframing anxiety, or is there a deeper meaning to it?
So there's many depths to it. That's a big part of it. And so let's start there. So I'll start off with a couple of big statements, and then I'll talk to those statements. So the first big statement is anxiety isn't unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. That actually it's pointing to your potential. And so nobody gets anxious about what's not possible.
Right.
So what happens is that, and so let me start by explaining, because anxiety is an emotion, and if you put a hyphen in between the E and the rest of the word motion, then you have emotion. E stands for energy in motion.
Mm-hmm.
So all emotions are energy. They're felt in the body and experienced and grounded in the physiology, and then they are coded by our mind and our languaging. So our language codes the feeling.
Yep.
And so we have a feeling arise like butterflies in our stomach, and we code that, and we use the term anxiety to code that feeling. And then we bring all our meanings to anxiety, like that's not good, nervousness, and now I resist that, and my body starts to shake. I go red in the face, my throat tightens, my mouth gets dry, and all those physiological symptoms are coded in to the meaning that anxiety isn't healthy, it's bad, and I shouldn't feel it, and it's not okay. And so there's the first bit. The second bit is that anxiety is always about the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's future oriented. So as the future hasn't happened and the future doesn't actually exist except in mind, we create the future in our mind. It doesn't exist in reality. It never has. Reality doesn't sit there thinking about the future. Reality just unfolds. We construct in mind a potential future, and then we so let's say, so tell me something you've ever gotten anxious about for yourself.
Posting, like promoting a seminar of some sort, and then anxious about no one actually purchasing it. A ticket.
Great. Fantastic. So where did you feel it in your body?
I would have felt it.
You would have felt it? Where did you feel it?
Just below my sternum.
Okay. In your solar plexus?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it have a shape?
It's like a circle.
It's like a circle. Does it have a color?
Yeah, it's more like an energy. So it's more like a white sort of. The thing I can relate it to is if you ever seen one of those Dragon Ball Z, where they have this big ball. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like this big solar. It's like a light, like a sun, but it's white from memory. Okay. I like this is something that I suppose I would have been from memory, because I'm trying to pull back that memory as best I can. And yeah. Does
it move inside your body? Does it go up or down?
I can probably control and make it worse and make it feel like it's coming up, almost like it's like you're regurgitating it, or I'm regurgitating
if it. Comes up, does it get worse?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and if it goes down, does it get better?
Yes.
Which way does it spin?
It just pulses.
It pulses. Okay, so catch that for yourself. So that is the physiological grounding that occurs in your body physiologically that you've coded.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, now let's look at the coding. What does all that mean for you?
So now or then?
Then
Then it would have been being shunned in the industry. It means that I would probably get hurt, something like emotionally hurt or whatever. My expectations, maybe you come out to the whole imposter syndrome, be a fraud, all those sorts of terms were sort of associated with that.
Yeah. So can you hear how you're coding this feeling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're coding it with hurt, pain. You're coding it with being judged.
Yep, absolutely.
Looking back at yourself, how aware are you that you're judging, that others are judging you?
Looking back at myself, did you say?
No, now, so looking back,
yep.
How aware that in order for you to code it this way, you're judging that other people are judging you.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You're doing what you don't want them to do. So just catch that for yourself. So that's a really good example of anxiety, yeah?
Yep.
Did you hear that this is about a potential outcome, but notice in your future orienting of a course that hasn't happened yet in the past,
mm-hmm.
Notice that as you look into the future and you code it as negative and the possibility that no one will turn up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Notice that you're doing that. You're projecting into the future and you're constructing a reality in your head that nobody's going to turn up. And even if they do, you may, even if they did get hurt, that you may be seen as an imposter, or if they didn't, you'd be seen as that by other people. So notice it's about others. So notice how you do anxiety. You project into the future a possibility. You treat it like it's a probability, and you forget that you're projecting.
Yep.
You forget that you're making it all up. It hasn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, you notice that you're not paying attention to the other possibilities of you that are presupposed in the projection. And so the other possibilities are that people will turn up but not like it. People will turn up and like it. People will turn up and love it. You could pack it out. Notice you don't pay any attention to that whatsoever.
Yep, absolutely.
So do you see you're projecting into a world of possibilities? So anxiety is always about possibility. And notice that you're not paying attention to your potential in your projection.
Yep.
And then you are like I know damned well that you get what you focus on.
Absolutely.
So now cognitive bias has you more likely focusing on what will go wrong than the possibilities. But do you see anxiety only, and you can really let this in, only happens because it's a possibility. Instead of paying attention to the possibility of you, the potential of you, you're paying attention to what you're calling the probability of you, which is in this case what won't work potentially.
Yep.
So anxiety arises as actually a healthy thing, because what it's doing is it's lining up the pathway for your potential, but you're paying attention to the way you've coded it.
Yep.
And it's having you now focus on what you don't want rather than what you do want.
Yep.
So people in the field of high performance do the same thing as you, except they focus on what they do want, not what they don't want.
Yeah.
And guess what?
They usually get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not surprising, is it?
No, not at all. So one of the things that, especially probably from doing more work with yourself and I suppose giving a bit more direction of, like, every time we catch up, I'm like, what's something else that I can be reading and going down that path, let alone the fact that I find all that sort of stuff interesting. And so reframing all that for me was like realizing that this just isn't resourceful for me, right? Feeling this way and then not allowing myself to go all in and actually running a successful event, so to speak. I'm like, this isn't resourceful for me. It's also not resourceful or beneficial for anyone else. And so what I started to recognize with that same sensation was that this is simply just a beacon of what I should probably move towards. And so in doing that, I stripped away, because every single time I had these, let's call them anxious thoughts, I'm like, but I don't know what I'm building these anxious thoughts about in the future. I don't know if that's true or not. So let's actually find out what's true, and let's just move towards without judgment.
Yeah.
And so in doing that, it allowed me to, shift away from this idea of what's going to be good or bad, and just focus on the process of where I'll be in the future by doing what feels right inside me.
Yeah.
So that was, for me, I suppose it was a way of how I reframed that anxious feeling. I never wanted to say that I had anxiety or I ever had depression, because I don't think it ever had me. I think it was something that yeah, exactly right.
It's not. It is not a thing. It is a process, a strategy that you are running.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't exist. It is always in process. If it is a process, then you can reprocess it. You can reframe it. You can adjust and make changes to it. So the fastest way to adjust anxiety is to catch that you're doing it, that you're doing the process of future orienting, that you're paying attention to the negative possibilities as a probability, see through it, see that you're making it all up anyway, and then ask yourself, is what I'm focusing on likely to get me what I want or take me away from what I want? Yeah. If it's taking you away from what you want, turn and give yourself permission to focus on what you do want. Yeah. And then as you do that, you'll recode it, as you say, as excitement. And now that energy, which is very similar, when you're going up a roller coaster, am I feeling fear or am I feeling excited, is a fine line. And that really depends on your viewpoint, because you're going up with a whole bunch of people who've paid a whole lot of money. And so as you go up the top, getting higher and higher and higher, just before you go over the edge and down, you can frame it and therefore code it either way if you want to. So all of that is within your power. So pressure, like I say, pressure doesn't exist on the inside. It is created through the way you frame and therefore code your experience. And so if I code that as fear, and I hold on to the possibility of that roller coaster crashing, then I am more likely not to crash, but I am more likely to experience that roller coaster ride as fearful than if I code it as safe, secure, and successful and fun. I am more likely to be able to code that going down that big dip as excitement.
Yep. Can I get you to explain on a little bit more deeper level, when you say code, exactly what you mean when you say code it?
Well, code means color and texture the emotional experience onto your experience. So your emotions are an overlay. They're like if you've got a black and white reality, your emotions color and I can't remember his name, the guy who used to do all those wild paintings.
Mr. Squiggle?
It could texture you as well. Who?
Mr. Squiggle.
Yeah, not quite, but it could you can texture it as well. So not only do you color it, but you can add dimensions and texture to it. That's what emotions do. Mm-hmm. But emotions are an output. They are energy in motion, and they are energy in motion which derives from the movies that you're making in mind about your future reality. So because the future doesn't exist, it's always happening in mind. How you color and texture those movies gives you your present experience of those movies and therefore of the future. So you're coding, and that someone who's depressed is literally coding the future as bleak and dark, literally. Somebody who is excitable, spontaneous and optimistic is quite literally coloring and coding the future as bright. all of the different things that they could be doing and paying attention to, and all the exciting stuff that they've not thought of doing yet, that they don't even know exist out there, and they're just waiting to be found, is somebody that is colouring and texturing and coding the future in their mind as bright, sunny, and rich. And somebody who's coding depression or fear or anxiety is literally, if they look at their movie, it'll literally be dark, it'll be dim, it'll have heavy, very little contrast in it, so things are hard to make out. And what goes with that is often a sinking feeling in their body. Yeah, so that's what we mean by coding, and we code it primarily through the language we use. So the language drives the movie that drives the emotional experience. The emotional experience then grounds my experience of how I think and feel about the future. And so as I language it to myself, so let's take somebody in your area, who coming into the gym. Yeah, somebody who is really struggling, who really struggles to get to the gym. Do you have those sort of clients?
I mean, definitely. I think a lot of people at some stage in their life, I would say, would go through that struggle. I think we have definitely created a facility that people, when they rock up here, it's because they want to be here. But life conditions shift, life conditions change. So we respect that.
So they be coding the future of coming into the gym for themselves by languaging it. I'm not sure I feel like being, challenged to the point that I'm going to be challenged there. I'm not sure I physically feel up to this. It could be that I don't know anybody. I'm new to the experience. I don't know anybody, and so I color and texture the thought of the unknown with previous experiences of going into an unknown situation and making a deal of myself. Yep. And so then I project that forward and I go, I'm just not sure I really want to go and spend time with people I don't know, that could make a fool of myself. And then all of a sudden I look up and I go, oh, wow, I'm late. And then I go, oh, well, they're going to start without me, so I won't bother going. Do you see how I languaged all of that? Now colors the experience in my body of, let's say, dread, which stops me from paying attention to the time, which then means I sabotage myself, sabotage myself from doing what I know I need to, and know I want to, and know I'm bloody well paying for. And then I beat myself up because I didn't have the strength to be able to get off my ass and go on time. Right. So now I've got all this shit running. Then I am coding it with my language. Now I start coding it with, I'm an idiot, I'm useless. And I start questioning myself. Am I just lazy? Am I just a lazy bastard? I mean, and do you see the world we create in mind? That's what coding does. Okay. And then what happens is it becomes self-fulfilling. So the movies create more of the emotions, which create more movies, which create more emotions, which I language into, creates more movies. It just builds upon itself. And that's what the book you're reading called Metastates shows us, is that we build state and thought and state and thought and state and thought upon state and thought, and we build a meta-state structure that holds and maintains us and stops us from performing and doing what we know we want, that we love, that we actually enjoy. Because when I finish really challenging myself from a physiological perspective at the gym, I'm in my gym clothes. I just came back from the gym. Suddenly I've got euphoria running through my body. I've got all these hormones and all these chemicals running through my body, and I'm like, yeah, baby. And so I know that, and yet I fucking didn't get up and go to the gym today. And that's coding 101. That's how we code ourselves in to a beautiful or terrible life.
Okay. So let's say, what's your advice then for somebody who is in that state where they are running through that sort of language and coding, where they're like, oh, I'm a bit late, I'm this and that. And where this is coming from is one of the biggest things that I focus on, and when I work with other coaches and business owners, it's like, look, you can have all the greatest systems in the world, and I think that's very important for your business. But if people don't feel safe enough to feel vulnerable, like they can allow themselves to feel vulnerable in that space, like they're just not going to want to keep coming back on some level. And so that safe space is very, very crucial. And so I've had plenty of people inquire, and then I call them and they miss it. And then the ship's gone. Like, no, sorry. And then they inquire again a couple of months later, and then the ship's gone again. And then I saw the name come through. This happened just the other week. I saw the name come through the third time. As soon as I saw it come through, I fucking called them straight away, booked them in for a trial, made sure they paid for the trial, and they've joined up and they absolutely love it. But they're obviously going through something similar to what you mentioned. So what is your advice to someone going through that process in mind?
So first you got to see it. So awareness precedes all development.
Okay.
Yeah. So without awareness, you cannot develop. So to develop, you got to become aware of how you're limiting yourself. Okay. So most often, and this is true for high performance athletes, it's true for CEOs, it's true for entrepreneurs, it's true for celebrities. So most of these people at some stage, they see something and immediately they want to change it. That's the opposite, because now you've just done what you've talked about. You've missed the opportunity. Yeah. You've missed the opportunity to get to know how you do what it is you're doing with intimacy. Once you can see how damned clever your mind is, once you're aware of how your mind is running you, you suddenly get power over it, but not until you can see it. So the first aspect of all development is to simply become aware. Don't do anything differently. Just observe. Become the witness. Become the witness of awareness of yourself. Like viewing yourself from a third person perspective and just watching. Yeah, objectively. Not needing to change anything. Not needing to fix anything. Just observing and inquiring. I wonder why I do that. It's interesting, hey, that I've just seen a pattern for myself roll out the third time this week, and I'm really becoming bloody curious about it. How is it that I'm running that? I wasn't even aware that I was running this 2 weeks ago, but now I can see it really obvious. So awareness is the first component part, and that occurs through witnessing. And then from there, more choice comes on board. So the more I witness, the more choice I get, actually. Do I choose to continue doing this? Now I can see it running. Mm-hmm. And then the third component part is decision. Once I become aware and I have a choice, now there's a decision to be made. Do I choose to continue to do that, or do I choose to stop doing that? And then the fourth component part of all development is actualization. Is now actualizing that decision that I've made. But here's the thing. If you go from awareness to actualization, you're just going to come straight back to pre-awareness again.
Right.
And so how can you expect the pay if you won't do the work? Yep. And so what I talk to and really hold the people in the fields of high performance I work with is I hold them to awareness, and I point at the fact that they're moving straight from awareness to actualization. They're not doing the work that it's actually going to take to get the results they're truly looking for. And so often I'll give them a practice where they slow down and stop trying to get to the outcome, and stay with the process. And when they do that, they get massive gains for themselves very, very quickly.
Yep. Fantastic. I think that's a fantastic conversation today. We're going to tie it up there anyway as it is, so we can run out of time. I've got a couple of quick questions for you. Actually, I don't know if they're quick. Let's be honest. We're going to be here for another 10 minutes asking these questions. But I've got a couple of questions from my Mood Prep Online group. Now, firstly, thank you very, very much for jumping online today and and sharing this. I'm going to go back and listen to it anyway as it is, and take notes again, because I'm trying to take notes, trying to ask questions, trying to listen to, and all that sort of stuff. So the other thing that I was going to say while I try and find these questions successfully, if you could give all the listeners a bit of a rundown on where they can find out more about your work and what you do.
Thecoachingroom.com.au is the organisation that I co-run with two other managing partners. There are three managing partners in the business now. Another managing partner, Joseph Scott, and we kicked the business off some 10 years ago. I had it running in a different kind of field, in the field of life coaching, probably for 4 years leading up to that. But we transformed it into a personal development business that does, executive coaching, developmental coaching, or transformational coaching for people in high performance arenas. And then we do all sorts of corporate communication work, and that's the corporate side of the business. On the public side of the business, it's about personal development through the field of NLP and what we call integral semantics, which is a creation of ours, which is a merge of general semantics, NLP, and the integral movement by Ken Wilber, and also a coach training system called the Meta Coach Training System as part of that. So we've got personal development, and then we've got personal development plus skill development in the field of professional coaching. So that's what the coaching room comprises, all those areas. And we're based in Sydney, but we coach and work with organisations and individuals globally.
Okay.
So thecoachingroom.com.au is where they can find more info on that.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you very much. So I have a couple of questions here. One from Mr. John Sheridan. And he's got two questions here, which he sneakily got two in. Usually it's just one, but Sherry's a big guy. I think he takes two seats on a plane, one for him, one for his food, and his beard. Actually,
wouldn't be good sat on a Vietnamese chair then.
No. I think he was on my podcast. His heaviest squat's like 900 something pound, something stupid. What's his one negotiable? This is you. What's your one non-negotiable for daily rituals / habits?
Practice your practices.
Fantastic. So a couple of these, I think you almost half answered through the podcast it is anyway. The other one is, what's the personality / mindset factor that's consistent across all those that you work with? And I'm assuming that's tying into high performance.
Yeah, getting yourself out the way.
Okay.
So about finding, and when I say yourself, I mean your mind, about becoming aware of how your mind habitually runs you and limits you.
Okay.
Freeing yourself from that is the difference that makes the difference between even high performance and extraordinary performance.
And how do you recommend people start that process?
Just as we spoke of before. So it's the same process. Awareness, followed by choice, followed by decision, followed by actualization, and doing the work to work through just simply witnessing yourself. It takes an immense amount of discipline, and that discipline comes from an intention to observe, to see what it is you may not like, but if you are able to see, will be game-changing for you, that'll allow you to see. For example, if I'm trying to lose weight and I find myself, suddenly faced face to face with a meat pie with sauce, the two genuinely don't go together. Yeah, so I've got one, it's got a lot of carbohydrate and fat content in it, and I'm putting that together and I'm putting it into my system that I want to be high performing in order for it to shed the weight that it's shedding. And then I'm expecting to do that, and I don't know why, but I just find myself eating the pie. Whether it's social pressure, whether it's I've just pushed myself really hard this week, and I'm giving myself a break. Whether it's however I self-talk myself into it, to simply observe the whole process and witness it. And witness it and witness it and witness it until I can start to see the patterns that link together that form the process of me doing that. Yet I say to myself, this is why I'm about. This is what I'm about. This is who I am. This is what's really important to me. And yet I'm not paying homage to that. I'm paying homage to something else. Now that could be drinking, smoking, it could be anything that is contrary to me doing what I know I need to do in order to shed weight. Yeah, and so shedding weight isn't hard. It's all of the shit that we put in the way. Learning how to do anything isn't hard. There's going to be some confusion. There's going to be a period of not knowing. There's going to be a period of real wobbliness, and then there's going to be a period of cementation, where the whole thing starts to come together, a bit like riding a bike. It just starts to all come together. Then it'll form, and then you will go to different levels of skill in that area. That is the learning process, no matter what you're trying to do. If you can see how your mind habitually gets itself in the way through all those different component parts in that process, and become uber aware of it, you've got more choice, you can make different decisions, and you can actualize those different decisions in order to get a different outcome.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, it's genuinely, it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
So what I like to say to people in the high performance field is, can you be comfortable being uncomfortable? Because your development does not occur inside of your comfort zone. So if your expectation is that you're going to develop and be comfortable, you're kidding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You only develop when you are uncomfortable. So how about you get uncomfortable fast?
Yep.
We call it going ugly early.
Going ugly. I could take that in many areas. We're going to leave it though. Great. Thank you. That's a fantastic answer. So, Martin, he's from Europe. He has about 18 questions. I'm going to try and bring it down to one. Say that again. He's options orientated, right?
Yeah. Options oriented.
Yeah.
Hey.
So how much time do you and your people, whoever your people are, obviously the people you work with, put aside weekly for self-exploration and improvement?
We don't.
Great.
We don't put aside time, because that would be separating things.
Okay.
So it occurs simultaneously with life.
Yep.
And so my awareness is now, never, not on.
Gotcha.
So there's no separation. There's no setting aside time to work on things. I'm constantly working on things as I'm going through life. So you don't need to find time. That is the greatest misnomer of development. Yeah. If you're looking and making it black or white, either I'm doing something or I'm developing myself, then you're missing the point of developing. It's developing whilst you're going through life. It's choosing to look as you go through it and bringing awareness to what is occurring now.
Yep.
So there's no need to set aside any time. So the first thing that I show people is that setting aside time means they are procrastinating about their development.
Okay.
And their need to do so is the thing that's holding them back.
Great. Now, here's another question here, which I'm not sure if I'm going to word it correctly, but it goes, do high-level CEOs struggle to make an important leap? And if so, what would be one thought process that you would recommend for them to run through in order to make a confident decision?
So Martin is very global, and I got no idea what he's referring to when he says to make an extra leap.
So I think I'm going to bring it down a little bit and sort of change the question around, and hopefully this sort of is close to what he's asking. Do CEOs struggle to make a breakthrough even at a high performing level? And if so, what is something that is common that you help them with to make that breakthrough?
So it's context dependent. So it's different for everybody. As I said, anxiety is one of the things I've noticed that people do that hold them back. Anger and frustration would be another two such emotions that get in the way, that stop people from being the people they need to become to lead people.
Gotcha. Yep.
And so, their desire for it to be perfect right now gets in the way of them becoming masters of the process.
Yep.
And so the greatest thing a leader can do is to come to terms with how it is, not how they'd like it to be, but how it actually is, and inquire into it. Why is it like this? Why do we keep having this problem reoccur? Why do we keep making these decisions this way? Why do we keep getting stuck here? And so by looking into and being with what is occurring rather than resistant to it, and anger is a somatic body, physiological indicator that I am resisting what is happening. When I am getting angry with the situation, I got a movie in mind about the situation that is different to the situation that's occurring in reality. And the gap between the movie I'm making of how it should be and what is actualizing in reality is the energy in motion. Mm-hmm. Well, this is the thing I know. Reality ain't going to change. So the opportunity is for you to change by seeing that your movie was only a map anyway, seeing through it, come back to reality and be with reality, and now go, okay, that happened, now what? Mm-hmm. How do I choose to respond? And when your energy flows into your response, rather than resisting what happened, and sticking with and frustrating yourself with how it should have happened and didn't happen, you're now freeing all of your energy in your system toward possibility. Mm-hmm. And you become a much more, what I would call, enlightened leader. Right. Enlightenment is just waking up to the truth of what's going on and being with it and not resisting it. And now being responsive with what's arising makes a masterful leader, because one, they're free. Two, they got all this energy to direct wherever they choose to direct it. And three, everybody else is bothering themselves around them, is them holding themselves back while the leader steps out and leads forward to a new and different experience, to a new outcome. Suddenly, when people see that occur, they start asking, how does she do that? How the hell does she just seem to be able to brush that off and genuinely move forward and get stuff done and turn things around? It's like magic. There's nothing magical about it. She's just not bothering herself with what could have been, but she is indeed with what is. Right. And that is the difference that makes the difference in high performance. Let's take a rugby team. Rugby team have a try scored against them. Yeah. Now, a game of rugby, there's going to be points scored against you and points that you score against people. Mm-hmm. It's the nature of the game. Yeah. That's why you've got defense and why you've got attack. So when somebody scores a try against you, if you then come together as a team and you got your head down, you're like, this is bullshit, you're a dickhead, Tom, you should have fucking tackled him, you idiot, you shouldn't be on this. Now you have to go out and face him again. How's that going with that mind-body emotional state of frustration, anger, blame, hurt, betrayal, disappointment, versus coming together and going, what did we learn? Well, we learned we need to keep our defense in a system, and the system that we've agreed, and not step outside us. Does everybody agree to stay in the system? Is that our learning from this? Good. Can we integrate this learning, take it out there, and go take our system to them? Yes. Bang, out we go. Bang, suddenly, bang, we put a try on them. Mm-hmm. You see, so it's being with the moment and responding with it, not resisting it and frustrating it and denying it, and then having to deal with the fact that we've created that energy that's no longer working for us.
Fantastic. Hopefully, Mato, that answers your question. The last question that I have is from Linda. So she has a two-part question, but I'll pull it into this. What is one step? I think you kind of answered this a little bit throughout our podcast anyway, but what is one step / process to help break a cycle or pattern that keeps us going around in circles? Contextual once again, but...
Yeah, well, it's global again, because the person hasn't talked about what kind of pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so awareness, seeing the pattern, seeing it unfold and inquiring into it. Here's a question that Linda can ask herself. If there was a positive intention for me going round and round and round in circles in a patterned way, what could it be?
Mm-hmm.
If there's a positive intention of me doing that, what could it be? And so you make up what you think, an example of what you think Linda might be talking about, even though Linda's not here. Let's make it up, but you do that part.
Sure. Starting her own business.
Right. And what's going round and round and round in circles?
Doing the research, then talking herself out of it, saying it's not the right time, then hating her job, then doing the research, then talking herself out of saying that it's not the right time, then hating her job.
Right. Yeah.
I hope I did you good, Linda.
Yeah. So let's take the talking herself out of it part. Yeah. Because that sounds like the precursor for looping.
Sure. Okay.
Not loopiness, Linda. Looping. So talking herself out of it, the question becomes, what's the positive intention of you talking yourself out of it? Now you play Linda. Hey, Linda, how you going? If there's a positive intention for you talking yourself out of it again and again and again and again and again and again, what would it be, do you think?
Probably not failing.
You have a deep voice, Linda.
Yeah. Look, you know what? I listened to a lot of Barry White recently, and
a big heavy beard.
Yeah.
So what would the positive intention be if you're talking yourself out of it? It would be avoiding failure.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So do you see the positive intention is self-preservation?
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can see that, that's the secondary gain of looping, is that you stay safe actually. Yeah. But what inside of that structure, what you can't see is staying safe isn't actually keeping you safe.
Yeah, I see that.
It's actually not keeping you safe because it's limiting your potential. But you see, you keep looping because you want to remain safe. And actually what you've done is you've prioritized the value of safety over your possible potential. So now you get to ask yourself another question. Do I choose to keep doing that now that I can see that I'm doing that? Is it serving me? Is it enabling me to become my true potential?
As Linda today, it's not, absolutely not. However, I feel stuck because I have other family obligations.
Yeah. So let's say that's true. You have other family obligations. Then if that's truly true for you, admit that to yourself and say no to the potential of starting your own business right now, if that is what is most important to you.
Right.
Yes, it's going to cost you, but there's a cost of not putting your family first too. Which are you going to pay the price of?
Yep.
And if it's, well, I could balance it. My family need to understand. I need to take this opportunity and I'm going to work through it with them. Then make that decision. So do you hear we've gone from choice to decision? Yep. Make that decision either way right now.
Great.
and then actualize it. Start taking action. Go talk to your family. Go get their support. Go talk about how you together might make this work. Not how you can make this work, but in a dynamic, because relationships are dynamic, in a dynamic way, how you can all make it work. And don't stop talking about it. Don't cut the dialogue off and try and do it all yourself. You must keep the dialogue going if you truly want to give yourself to the opportunity of going and creating your own business, which is, I've been in business for 14 years. It's not an easy thing. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Great. On behalf of Linda, thank you for that advice.
You're welcome. Yep.
Jay, we're going to finish up there. Thank you very much again for jumping on the podcast and sharing a lot of that wisdom. Like I said, I'm definitely going to go back and listen to this as well. So hopefully everyone listening got a lot out of this. And as always, I'm probably going to ask you to jump on again at some point in the near future.
Cool.
But until next time, for those that are listening, peace and pizza. I'll see you guys soon.
You're welcome.